Saturday afternoon. I think almost the first day of spring, almost. I think tomorrow's first day of spring, and it's already giving us such wonderful weather. So that is great. Today we have a very nice program, and our agenda for today will be a beautiful opening kirtan by His Grace Sachit Ananda Das. That will be followed by a class by His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami. And Bhaktimarga Swami will present the class on one of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, considering this month is so special, because we're going to have Gaur Purnima very soon, and His Holiness Maharaj will try to introduce some topics on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, following the class by His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami, we will have a little session on questions and answers, and then some announcements for the week. That will be followed by a closing kirtan by His Grace Sachit Ananda Das. So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome His Grace Sachit Ananda Das to lead the opening kirtan. Thank you for all attending.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, this month of March being the appearance of our Savior, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Iskcon Niagara is celebrating the entire month with special programs glorifying Mahaprabhu. So In this Kirtan session, I would like to present a wonderful bhajan by an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu known as Vashu Ghosh. यदि गौर ना होइतो तबे की होइतो केमोने धरिताम दे राधार महिमा प्रेम रस सीमा जगत जानत के यदि गौर ना होइतो तबे की होइतो के मोने धरी तादे यदि गौर ना होई तो तबे की होई तो के मोने धरी तादे राधार महिमा प्रेम रस सीमा जगत जानत के यदि गौर ना होई तो तबे की होई तो के मोने धरी ताम दे यदि गौर ना होई तो तबे की होई तो के मोने धरी तांबे राधार महिमा प्रेम रस सीमा जगत जानत के हो राधार महिमा प्रेम रस सीमा जगत जानत के मधुर वृंदा विपिन माधुरी प्रवेश चातुरी सा मधुर वृंदा विपिन माधुरी प्रवेश चातुरी सा ब्रजेर युवती भावेर भक्ति शक्ति होइते कान हो व्रज युवती भावेर भक्ति शक्ति होइते कान यदि गौर ना होई तो तबे की होई तो के मोने धरी तांबे गाओ गाओ पुना गौरांगेर गुण सरल होइया मन गाओ गाओ पुना गौरांगेर गुण सरल होइया मन ए भव सागरे एमन दयाल ना देखिया एक जना ए भव सागरे एमन दयाल ना देखिया एक जना यदि गौर ना होई तो तबे की होई तो के मोने धरी तांबे Gauranga Baliya Nagenu Baliya Kemone Dharino De Gauranga Baliya Nagenu Baliya Kemone Dharino De Vasurahiya Pashan diya ke mone gadiya che Vashurahiya Pashan diya ke mone gadiya che Yadi gaur na hoi to তবে কি হইত কেমনে ধরিতাম রে যদি গৌর না হইত তবে কি হইত কেমনে ধরিতাম রে রাধার মহিমা রাধা রাধার মহিমা প্রেম রস সীমা জগত জানত কে যদি গৌর না হইত তবে কি হইত কেমনে ধরিতা দে Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Nitai Gauranga Gaur Hari. Nitai Gauranga Gaur Hari. Nitai Gauranga Gaur Hari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaur Hari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaur Hari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaur Hari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaur Hari. Parama Karuna Gaur Hari. Parama Karuna Gaur Hari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaur Hari. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe Radhe. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Radhe. Jayo Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Radhe. Jayo Krishna Balaram Jayo Vrindavan Dham. Jayo Lalita Vishakha Radhe Shyam. Jayo Lalita Vishakha Radhe Shyam. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. कलयुग पावन हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Hare Krishna and welcome to Iskcon Niagara's Saturday presentation. And with such wonderful weather that's out there, it's surprising that we have people coming to the class, but Maharaj is here, and that's going to make it even brighter than outside. So anyway, that's great. Thank you, Sachidananda, for a nice rendition of such sweet kirtan. Thank you very much. We're going to hear from you again at the end. So anyway, today's class is going to be presented by His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami, the GBC, that stands for the Governing Body Commissioner for all of Canada. He is our overseer, he's our administrator, he's our spiritual head, and he's our comforter as well. He's multi-talented, multitasking, and doing a million things. Anyway, here's a little background of His Holiness. Born in Chatham, Ontario, Canada, he's also known as the Walking Monk for having trekked across Canada four times across Canada, east, west, east, west. That's great. Keeping with the spirit of pilgrimage, he crossed the USA as well, Israel, Ireland, Guyana, Trinidad, Mauritius, and the Fiji Islands. Documentation of his Canadian walks is found in two films. One, The Longest Road by the National Film Board of Canada, and Walking, The Lessons of the Road by Michael Osh. I hope I got that right. Anyway, as a youth, Swami was a student of fine arts, but took to the life of a Hare Krishna monk at the age of 20 in 1973. Although pursuing monastic ways, he maintains artistic expression through morality theater, which takes him around the globe as a playwright and director, an opportunity to work with talented youth in various communities. Now, we've seen that wherever we go, whenever we go to different countries, and sometimes Maharaj is visiting that particular site, we can see the magic of his dramatic skills, the bringing about many youth in a very short notice is able to put together amazing plays on the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and many stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are truly grateful for those inspirational works. He is also an instructor of Bhakti Yoga, a leader of musical mantra meditation called Kirtan, and a speaker of the science of self-base on the ancient teachings of the Gita. Presently, as I said before, he's the GBC for Canada, the Toronto Temple Trustee, and Iskcon Niagara Director, and I think he's the director of many other centers throughout Canada, and an initiating guru. So, without wasting too much time, we'll welcome His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami to give us some nectar on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Thank you very much, Vaishnava Prabhu. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Maharaj.
You can hear me? Okay, fantastic. Thank you for the nice introduction. And I would just like to say welcome to spring. It has sprung. And as was indicated by Vaishnava Prabhu and by the beautiful chanting that happened prior, that, we have nice weather upon us. And thanks for jumping on board. We are actually celebrating one of our great saints in our lineage. His name is Shri Chaitanya, and he is also known to be non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, non-different from Krishna. His coming into the world was predicted, and we would like to talk a little bit today about the kind of effect he's had and the impact on the world, even to this day, even though he appeared a bit over 500 years ago in West Bengal, in a place what we now call Mayapur, Navadvip. I would like to, first of all, offer my pranams to my guru, Srila Prabhupada, who is the guru for all of us in our society. If you know the words, follow along with me. If not, then just listening would be good enough. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminita Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. And I'll do another mantra in honor of Chaitanya and his close associates. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. And then if you could join me in the Mahamantra, which is really, again, for everybody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. I would like to open up with a rewrite of his 8 famous verses that he left us, called the Shikshastakam, which is like instructions or directions given in 8 stanzas. And this is not to replace the common translation that is given to us in English, but I have written in such a way that it rhymes, and I hope it will carry the spirit of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'll present it to you now, and then we'll talk about this great avatar known as the Golden Avatar. So I'm calling this piece Chaitanya's Verses. And this is basically what he has to say about chanting, and also about, the sentiment that is to be carried while addressing this sacred sound, which is so, let's say, intricately and intrinsically connected with this great monk. So here we go, Chaitanya's Verses. Victory to the sacred sound that cleanses all around. There's filth in the heart piled up from the start. Many births of desires have burst up like fires. Therefore, the kirtan charge is for humanity at large. It's a practice so cool, like the rays of the moon. It's the fruit of wisdom with joy that's arisen. So sweet to the taste, we go there with great haste. You who are divine, this sound is sublime. With thousands of names, they all are the same. In them, all energies are invested. The names are tested. Rules, not hard and fast. It's easy to pass. Out of sheer kindness, the sound is sure to bind us. They are attractive, accessible, approachable, doable. But what is most unfortunate is that I can't always appreciate it. To approach the sound, one must be humbly bound, like the straw in the street. One has to be meek, like a tall, stout tree, tolerant as can be. I'm telling you, brother, it's the ego we have to smother. RESPECT. Respect is how it should be. With the right attitude, the constant sound has platitude. Oh, power behind the universe, I'm not looking to be fabulously rich, not to be overwhelmed by the lustful itch, nor entangled in the name fame hitch. I'll have my bhakti list, though births persist. O son of Nanda, I love you, and I will assist you, but I'm in an ocean, drowning without devotion. Pick me up from this ocean of death before my last breath. While those lotus feet are handsome, place me there like an atom. When will the time come when tears of love will run and flow so constantly while chanting in ecstasy? When will my voice choke up in the course of shake up? When will hairs stand on end as we chant to transcend? Govinda is your name. Separation makes me insane. One moment lasts forever, like 12 years or whatever. Tears come like rain. Your absence gives such pain. This vacancy in life creates so much strife. But I know only you as my lover. There is no other, even when it's rough. I'll never have enough of heartfelt embrace, or when we find no trace of you in your freedom to act. So I'll state the fact that I love you. I love you. I always will love you. Thank you very much for listening. Chaitanya's verses. And these verses, as I mentioned, are a rewrite done in rhyme format on the text Shikshastakam, written by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is addressing the sound, sacred sound, and also addressing Krishna at the same time. These Shastras, the ancient books of wisdom, tell us that there is no difference between God and the sound of God, or mantra power. There is no difference between God and the mantra, in other words. So it is recognized that in this day and age, we get a relief from the struggles of life by exposing ourselves to the mantra, either by chanting it audibly for yourself or people around you, or just by listening to others singing. There's power in the mantra. A mantra is like a prayer, and it's an expression of love. Sometimes a prayer would indicate it's like a plea, an appeal. Please give me empowerment, oh my Lord. Please make me strong so that I can deal with the trials of the day and the problems of life. There are different kinds of prayers and different kinds of mantras. But in this particular mantra, the one that we constantly bring up to the fore, it's called the Mahamantra, the great mantra of deliverance. And we expressed it earlier, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In former ages in India, many sacrifices were executed. People in very ancient times would perform what's called dhyana yoga, and then very peaceably sit by themselves and gain a sense of mindfulness. And there was another phase in history where there was elaborate sacrifices that went on. These sacrifices would involve grains, ghee, milk, sometimes animals, flowers, anything that was part of a harvest, cloth, material, almost anything that was considered to be valuable, gold in some cases. And this was one way of offering gratitude to the Supreme, to God. There was also a time when, in a previous age called Dwapara, people were engaged in elaborate rituals along the lines of temple worship and honoring the Vigraha, God in the form of a deity. And now, in this age, which is referred to as the age of Kali, an age of darkness, and also simple-mindedness, if I can use that term, people need a process which will quickly help them in a purging and a purification process. So Chaitanya came here as an avatar. Back in 1896, he was, no, I'm sorry. Let's go back a few hundred years prior to that. 1496, 86. He was born in Bengal, and he was born into a Brahmin family who came from East Bengal, which is now known as Bangladesh, and where people are quite pious. In those days, there was a lot of bhakti flowing everywhere. Bhakti means loving God in an unrestricted, unconditional way. And the Lord was born, and immediately he showed signs of being not an ordinary person, but being an avatar. It showed on the ends of his hands and his feet signs of an avatar. What's an avatar? An avatar means generally, the general definition means one who descends from a higher plane. I don't mean plane like aircraft, from a higher existence, and then comes down to this earthly world to help to raise the consciousness of the people. An avatar is someone who is empowered. There are many different types of avatars. There are what we call Leela avatars, such as Krishna and Ram, and many of the other popular avatars like the lion avatar. There's sometimes what we call Das avatar, although they don't fit necessarily into that category. But one great poet, his name is Jayadev, he popularized and identified 10 great avatars. And then there's Manvantara avatars, which refers to Manus, who are like progenitors in the universe. They lived and reigned for some time. And even to this day, there's a Manu who rules the world, oversees the world. There's also something we call Yuga avatars. And this is where Chaitanya fits into. Yuga means a period of history. And so since we identified, we're living in a time now, an epoch called Kali, an age of darkness and simplicity, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared just over 500 years ago to give the people of this world some kind of relief. And that was his contribution. He gave it in the form of going around to offer philosophical truths by being a teacher. When he was a young man, he already had many students. When he was a very young teacher, he taught grammar, vyakarana. He taught all kinds of logic, nyaya, philosophy, and so on like that. Scholarly people came to him. They brought their sons to him. They wanted to learn from him. He was like a child prodigy. He was recognized as a scholar. In fact, he was called Pandit, Nimai Pandit. Nimai comes from the name of a tree in Bengal, which is common. Just like our maple tree, they have neem, and neem is like a very auspicious tree. So we called it, he became known popularly as Nimai Pandit. All through his life, which was a collective 48 years, his mission was to share love of Krishna. And his most mature years, if I could use that term, were held in Jagannath Puri, which is a city in the coastal place of Orissa, on the state of Orissa, eastern part of India. There's a famous temple there of Jagannath, which means Lord of the Universe. It's an image of Krishna in a wooden form, and he's accompanied by his sister Subhadra and elder brother Balaram. And every year there's a big Rath Yatra held festival in that city of Puri, a parade, a procession a glorious one. And by the way, if some of you are tuned in, haven't yet made contact with our Rath Yatra in Toronto, which is probably the biggest attended in North America, then plug in. We have it every year, although we'll have to do it on a small scale again this year due to COVID restrictions. This is a joy ride, and it is, as I mentioned, a procession which involved Chaitanya himself, who is Krishna with a lighter complexion than we know Krishna is. He's considered to be the golden avatars. He had a light, a very smooth and, let's say, effulgent tone. And therefore, he's known as Gaur Hari, or the golden avatar. And he participated in this festival every year, which happens usually by the lunar calculations, end of June up to somewhere in early July, which is pretty much the same time that we have our festivals here. And to prepare, one time to prepare for this big event, Chaitanya led the way to his many followers by getting personally involved in a big cleansing program. He said, if you're going to have a big party, you have to get the place clean. You have to make the place ready for many pilgrims to come, and also to make it ready for God himself in his deity form to feel welcome and to want to be in that spot. So about 500 years ago, approximately, I can hit almost on the nail, because in his last 24 years, that's where he spent time in Puri, he participated in this event. So the deities, what happens is they go from one temple to another, 2 miles or 3 kilometers down what's called the Grand Road. We thank the British for giving it that name. So the deities of Krishna, as Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, ride on these massive chariots, and they're hand-pulled, pulled by not horsepower, but pulled by the love power of his devotees, by ropes, and everyone yanking together at the same time, and then going to the second temple called Gundicha. And Gundicha refers to the name of the queen of a great king who reigned there at one time. Indrajumna was his name. So the Rath Yatra festival was about to begin, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the renounced monk, he decided he would go and clean. He'll show how to do it. He showed his followers. Now, some of the servitors of the temple, they were a little bit reluctant. Oh, but you're a Swamiji. We can't have you do that. We can have other people do that. But it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who led the way, as I said. And he mentioned, no, this is something I feel obliged to do. I'm going to take this humble position, and I'm going to clean the temple. And I'll have my compadres, so to speak, help me. They will come and assist me in this cleansing process. So they went ahead, and terracotta pots were accumulated, and there were hundreds of them. It's described shata, which means, many. And there were many men, hundreds of men who participated in this celebration. It really became more of a party than it became just labor of work, but labor of love, we can say for sure. And so everything started with, using brooms. As you see in India, it's a collection of little stick straws, all sort of wound together, and then you dust along the way, whatever could be gathered, and also cloth was used. People's personal material that they wore, something that was now worn, they used that cloth, the material. By the way, Orissa, in Orissa, state of Orissa, there's a lot of cloth woven still to this day, gamshas and lungis and everything like that. It's famous for making cloth. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took some of his own personal cloth and he used it to cleanse after the sweeping went on, and then water was brought in. There was a nearby well, and water was, hoisted up, and so these pots of sizable, sizable quantities were carrying this water. And in those days, they didn't have hoses, to shoot up into the ceiling, but they did get at the ceiling, and Chaitanya and his followers, and they would just shoot the water up on the ceiling until they hit every spot, and naturally they would go to the walls using the same technique or methodology, and then this would all run on the floor, and then eventually it would sort of just leak out from the doorways and then run on the roadways, and people are walking by and says, "Hey, what's going on here? There's a flood and there's no rain." And so in this way, they went on a sort of a merry way, cleaning not only the temple, but the sitting places, the singhasan for the deity, also into the residential quarters where the pujaris or pundits were staying, also the pantry for the kitchen itself. They went about the entire canvas, cleaning it like anything. And they even had a competition. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made a pledge. He said, "I'll collect more than all of you guys together." And so that actually did transpire. How he did it, I don't know. But we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had long arms, big hands, long legs. He was tall, up to like close to 7 feet tall. And he could reach, he could stretch. And they were just I would say they were having a blast. Let's call it a bhakti blast, cleaning the temple. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was showing how devotion is fun when teamwork is applied. This is what you do. You have some thought, you have a concept of what you want to do for Krishna. That's like the dream state. And then eventually you come up with the scheme state. How are you going to do it? And it's going to be done with a collective effort. And so that's the team state. And then in the end, you will have a ultimate mean state. Well, we accomplished it. We got what we wanted out of our endeavor. So an endeavor of devotion, love of God. So when the temples get cleaned, then it's just a very conducive atmosphere for performing devotion. And in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, people went to the temple for having darshan, and in the famous temple, which is somewhat restricted to certain individuals. But the idea was to have darshan and also to observe the worship that goes on. And most important is to have kirtan. And that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's greatest gift was to the world, is this kirtan or mantra meditation. Even to this day, many yoga studios have taken up the process of, along with their yoga practices and their asanas and so on like that. So it's nice to know. But what's interesting is that when you talk to yoga teachers, very few of them know who this Chaitanya is. And we can clearly call him the father of kirtan, the father of the holy name, because he brought it to the fore. If you travel almost anywhere in India and you ask people, faithful Hindu folks, or people have some who celebrate even like Christians and Muslims celebrate Hindu events. Do you know Chaitanya? And you're left to be surprised if anybody really has an answer to your question. Um, so even now, even to this day, with the spread of the Hindu diaspora going all over the world, and the Vaishnava culture, the culture of Chaitanya, um, moving up everywhere. Every year in India, the Hare Krishna movement, for instance, is building up about like 2 major colossal structures, on the average, and opening up many other smaller centers. So my prediction is that, and it's said by Mahaprabhu himself, Chaitanya, that chanting of Krishna's name will be happening in every town and village. And so we see that in the next coming decades, unless if something drastic happens, there will be a mushrooming of temples all over the place. And this is very glorious. And, we're experiencing here, even in Southern Ontario, we're opening up quite a few centers, and Niagara Falls is one of them. So it's the fire, the spread of the wildfire of the Bhakti movement has begun, and it's going to continue, and it won't stop. Now, there's one text called the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is about the life of Chaitanya, and it's translated by our Srila Prabhupada, our guru. We have a famous verse in Bengali which expresses that in every town and village, there will be this sharing of the name, the kirtan. And so we do see that it's happening, it's taking place. And people can be part of this good experience. So just like we were talking about a cleansing, the external cleansing must go on. There's also a need for an internal cleanse, and that happens through the mantra meditation. And this is the actual highlight of our centers, the sharing of, well, I'd say 3 things that have become very popular: the sharing of sacred sound, sacred wisdom, and also sacred food, prasadam. Anybody who knows Hare Krishna, they'll say, "Oh, you got, people are the wonderful, you have the nice food there." Like I was in the park a couple hours ago, just before getting onto the Zoom call, and I was chanting, sitting in the sun and basking a little bit, and taking in some vitamin D. And I just sat on a picnic table there, and a man just came walking by in a little bit of a suit with those kind of like elbow pads, and a kind of a classy suit. And he stopped and he said, "Oh, so how long have you been into Buddhism?" And I said, "Well, I'm actually a Krishna follower." He says, "Oh yeah. My wife, she has followed Krishnamurti. Was a teacher of the past, and his writings are quite well known and established." And said, "Yeah, I have lots of Indian friends." I said, "Are you not Indian?" So, "No, I'm from Iraq. But I heard about your temple your place over there where you live. You have lots of, I heard the food is really great there." I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So those are 3 features of the Hare Krishna movement: our food, our sound, and the philosophy, which is really good to swim in. Let the intelligence swim into this this tattva, or this truth about life, about the universe. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to offer to us, is a cleansing process. So in this day and age, when people are really struggling with personal identity, they're struggling very much with issues of depression. There's lots of social issues. One of the social issues that people struggle with today is that there is not much social interaction with people, or what we call social intercourse. And I'm talking about even before the pandemic hit us a year ago. It just seems like there's an awful lot of lonely people out there. just like the Beatles sing the song, All the Lonely People. Where do they all come from? You can check it out. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the Beatles. It's a beautiful song. And where are they all coming from? From all directions. And yes, loneliness is a feature of depression, which brings on a lot of other ills of society. We keep hearing that one of the, let's say, determining factors of what is Kali Yuga, this age, is that there's a lot of mental imbalance in people. People are struggling a lot, and it's very much on the rise. A lot of instability in this area. So there's a great need for social interaction. And it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who did that for us. Now, another interesting story about Chaitanya is that before this episode of his cleansing the Gundicha temple, which is in Orissa, the king held his throne in that city, Jagannath Puri. His name was King Prataparudra, and he was quite devoted. He had profound love for the Absolute, and he heard so much about Chaitanya. And we shouldn't forget that a lot of people were very, very taken by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's euphoric nature, his saintly qualities, just the way he looked. His countenance was grave to sometimes depression. Okay, the spiritual depression. Let's not mistake it with, the physical conditions and physiological things that people are taxed with in this world. But and of course his elation, his utmost happiness that would exude from his persona. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was approached by his devotees, and they said, by the king, the local king, he really wants to meet with you. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was like a celebrity. He was like a superstar. And ordinary people would see him, get close to him. But the king himself, who had basically have access to almost anything and everything, didn't have his audience. And so he asked some of his intimate followers, assistants, can you please see that I can have an appointment with Chaitanya? I'd really, I've not met him, but everything I've heard about him is very appealing to me. I have issues in my own life. I want to get purified. I want to meet with him. Can you do that for me? So it was suggested to Chaitanya a few times. You think you could see the Maharaj? Could you see the king? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not so favorable to the idea. There was one of his followers from southern India. His name was Ramananda Roy, and he moved into that area of the eastern part of India, and he'd asked the king, first of all, just to get his blessings, I would like to spend time with Mahaprabhu. Said, yes, please spend time with him, and I'm hoping one day I can also have his audience. By the way, do you think you could ask him if he could give me a few minutes of his time? And so Ramananda Roy said, I will see what I can do for you. I will put in that request. Ramananda Roy put in the request. And Chaitanya said, well, it's not such a good idea for a mendicant like me. I'm a sannyasi, and I don't really mix with political people. I don't really mix with these politicians. They're worldly people, and it's just not my thing. I just don't do that, and so still the request was coming forward. And then he thought, well, I'll tell you what, as a compromise, if it will satisfy the king, the Maharaj, here's one of my pieces of cloth, as we mentioned earlier on, the Lord with his own clothes that he would wear, if something was rejected, a little bit old, he'd use it to clean the temples. Well, I have an extra piece of cloth here. It's like external garment. Internal garment is something we call kopan, so that wasn't given. But for a sannyasi or swami, a cloth from a sannyasi is considered to be even worshipable. So the cloth made its way to the king, and he thought, this is great. I'm going to worship this cloth worn by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He revered it like anything. Anyways, time went on, and the king was still very anxious. I really want to see Mahaprabhu. And then, so Ramananda Roy was instructed by the Lord, okay, so let's have another compromise here. And he said, the king has a son, I understand. So since I don't want to see, I'm not so keen on seeing this political person personally, his son, perhaps he could send him as an envoy or as his representative. How's that? So the king was very excited to hear this news. And the boy, he was a prince, of course. He's the son of a king. He was dressed up real nicely and almost dressed up to look like a glorious Krishna when he was young. So the prince came, and Mahaprabhu was taken by the boy. He had big, beautiful, kind of like lotus eyes, and it just immediately reminded him of Krishna, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, but he had the sentiment of Radha, of Krishna's eternal consort. He had the feelings, the spirit of Radha. So anytime that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was reminded of Krishna, he said, I just want to go there. If Krishna's over there, I want to be in that place. So this boy started coming around with the pleasure and permission of the Maharaj, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy to see the boy on a regular basis, who reminded him of Krishna. So this is one of the main features of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is that he was very dear to Krishna. As I mentioned earlier on, there's no difference between God and his name, no difference between Krishna and the sound. Nama Chintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Purna Nitya Sattvasto. No, but let's see, I got the verse a little bit messed up, but let's see if I can remember. It'll come. The verse is basically saying that the name of the Lord is not different from the Lord. I was raised as a Christian, and we were told by the Lord, through the Lord's Prayer, that God's name is hallowed. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And I used to wonder, what is it? I understand what a name is. I've got a name. I guess God has a name too. But what is this word hallowed? And I didn't really find out until much later on, after I became I guess I could have looked up in the dictionary. It refers to something like means sacred. It's a sound that's not of this world. It's a sound that's imported from the spiritual realm, from the spiritual world. So that's why adhering oneself to the mantra, it's so important. Connecting with a mantra is connecting with God directly. And Mahaprabhu Chaitanya, he stayed with us for 48 years for his earthly presence. But then he did leave us some things that we could chew on. And there were the 8 stanzas that we recited earlier on. And he did give a lot of instructions to his followers. He encouraged the building of temples, he encouraged worship, and he encouraged strong relationships amongst the followers, that there should be real wholesome and healthy, let's say, connections between each other if you want to advance spiritually and go to God, you must be very kind to God's devotees, to what we call bhaktas. And another feature of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lifestyle was a lot of prasadam. There was always a lot of cooking. There was a lot of food distributed from the temple of Jagannath. And it's interesting to know that the food is a little different from ours. They didn't have cauliflower. They didn't have like white potatoes like we have now. These are all like northern veggies. And even to this day, they're very orthodox about what they serve Jagannath in the temple. And so when you go to the temple in Jagannath Puri, you'll find their sabjis, their food, their cuisine is a little different than what we might be used to. So food was a big part of the culture, the distribution, the preparation, the distribution, and to see that everybody was getting it. Everyone. I remember traveling in Orissa. One of my good friends was building a temple in Orissa with the school. And we, at that particular temple, he made sure of it that everyone in that area was getting prasadam, food, sacred, sanctified food. And even some of what Gandhi had referred to in the past as Harijans, people who are not so, let's say, privileged or poor or deprived and don't have much schooling, what was referred to sometimes as untouchables. Well, in that particular place in Orissa, where this beautiful temple was gloriously going up, it came to prasadam time, the distribution. And there were I remember one woman in particular, I think she was not so stable. She was wearing strange clothes and she was kind of just looking at everyone eating very nicely. And I mentioned to my friend who sponsored this whole event and the temple, said, don't you think we should take care of people like that? And he said, oh, yes, Maharaj. Yes, surely. So that becomes a big part of the Hare Krishna movement, the distribution of prasadam. And one particular event in Mayapur, there was a big celebration and there was a lot of prasadam being served out. And the food was being served on banana leaves. And that's pretty standard over there. If you go to Guyana, they serve it in lotus leaves, just circular in shape. It kind of stays together. Banana leaf, it tends to kind of like fall off. And so in this case, the festival was over and the refuse, or let's say the rejected banana leaves, were tossed to the side, which would left to be picked up later by those who collect the garbage. Of course, this is always wonderful. It's biodegradable material. But Prabhupada, he was seeing that after one event, a festival, that the dogs, the local dogs, were fighting with the children, the more underprivileged children in the area, fighting for leftovers, and some of the kids were starting to lick because they didn't have food. And Prabhupada looked at this scenario, the fighting between the children and the, let's say, stray dogs, and they're not really that good looking over there. The dogs are, disease infected and so on. Prabhupada, he was just very tearful. And he said, no one should go hungry within a 10-mile radius of any of our temples. So this is when the Food for Life program was started by Srila Prabhupada, and which since then has been activated and been kept alive in many places in the world. In Bengal, there's a tendency for there to be floods, and the the Ganges River just flows over the banks, and people are put in turmoil. Their lives are turned upside down with this kind of dynamic. And so devotees, as a habit, during this particular time of flooding, they'll make arrangements to cook a prasadam and deliver it by boats to the different people who are in need. So in this way, people um, are becoming favorable to Krishna in the area. We have one devotee that is a Polish devotee, and he's very kind to the local people there. He lives in Mayapur, which is not Orissa, but it's next door neighbor state over. And he's done a lot of prasadam distribution. He's got to know the local language. He comes to visit us here sometime in Toronto. Do you remember his name? Yeah, Mahashringa. Yeah. He's such a loving person. It reminds you of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who just loved everybody. He was a people hugger. So Mahashringa does this and to the local people, and they just love him. He goes out to the village over the Chilangi River and over the Ganges, and he distributes this prasad. So we've been talking a little bit about carrying on the legacy of what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought initially, which is to share spiritual wealth. Share spiritual wealth in the form of food, prasadam, in the form of sound, the holy name, in the form of wisdom. So another thing that we're quite crazy about in the Hare Krishna movement is our dissemination of wisdom, knowledge in the form of books. Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, is the champion in this area. He's produced so many books in such a short amount of time and made it available and turned people's lives around from a negative to a positive. You know? And he said he made hippies into happies, and in modern day text you could say punks to monks, or whatever. He did so much for the world, and even after he's left, the true mark of a great soul is in that even after his or her departure, they're able to affect people's lives, hundreds of years later. So those of us who are devout followers of Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can do good by sharing this Krishna consciousness in the aforementioned ways. We have that obligation. Spirituality will stay alive in your own person when you share it. If you just keep it to yourself, there's a danger of becoming stagnant. So we don't want to become complacent, but we want to capture that spirit of sharing, giving it out, dishing it out. We call it distribute it. And the Prabhupada used to say, double it. Whatever you're doing now, double it for next year. And the next year, double your distribution of the wisdom of the philosophy and of the food and ultimately, ourselves. You have to sell yourself to the world. What do we mean by that? We're saying that by our good behavior, by our good conduct, people will take notice and they'll feel, I think I like to encase some of what I see there. Like those of us who met Prabhupada, they said, I would like to have a piece of Prabhupada in me. I would like to have, I know I can't have it all, but I'd love to have some of what he has. So if we carry ourselves in that kind of spirit of, loving others, and loving God is one thing. Mahaprabhu Chaitanya, he went all through this Southeast Asia. He went right down to Cape Comorin. He went all over to the east, to the west, and about the furthest north, he went to Vrindavan, where Krishna spent his pastimes. He went to honor deities and he went to share the kirtan, and made it fun, like that cleansing party that happened, that cleaning party. He made it fun, and he helped us to understand it's teamwork that's going to do it for you. Teamwork that's going to make you a success, and in the spiritual circles. So there's much more we can say about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a contemporary of other saints like Guru Nanak and Mirabai, and there's quite a host of people. And those people, they created kind of renaissance at the same time when Europe was going through its kind of certain kind of renaissance. India had its own kind of time where things were stirring up, and let's build up integrity in our ancient Vaishnava culture. Let's bring it back to what it's supposed to be, an expression of sincerity, not just about rituals, not just like empty utterings of mantras, but real deep down, heartfelt expressions of love for the Absolute, for Krishna. So thank you. I believe that I'm supposed to just maybe stop at some point and see if anybody has anything else that they would like to contribute in the way of comments or questions, anything like that, or if you'd like me to elaborate more on any area, just please let me know. In other words, let it flow like the waters of the Niagara River. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hope you like the poem.
Yes, that was a very nice poem. I mean, it captured the 8 stanzas in nice flowing rhyme, and it had the essence of all those stanzas. And thank you for that. And thank you for the class, Bhaktimarga Swami. Thank you very much for all your detail about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, this is the moment for questions and answers. We'd like to ask all the attendees if there's any questions or concerns that you have. Maharaj is here and he will be able to address them for you. Now, you can unmute your mics and you can pose these questions one at a time. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, all bless you, Prabhupada. Maharaj, you are speaking on mute. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm free now.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much. What a wonderful reflection on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Maharaj. We are so grateful. Thank you so much. So Maharaj, I was thinking on that. By the way, this is Pitambara Das Stovil.
Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was thinking on that Pratap Rudra pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and every time I listen to this, Maharaj, it gives me a question as to why, despite the recommendation of Ramananda Roy to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not accepted Pratap Rudra's request? We listened that yes, he was a politician, he was a king, but we know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is freely distributing the love of God, irrespective of anybody, caste, creed. So why did he not accepted his request in the first place, Maharaj?
Very good question. And naturally, the question would arise for someone who's a free distributor of love. Why did he make it so hard for one person? So the answer is that he did make it available. They did make contact. It just took a little time. And when relationships are meaningful, just like between lover and beloved, sometimes it takes a little time for it to get deeper. So if you have to work a little harder, to get to your target, to your aim, then it becomes so much more meaningful when indeed you have made the goal. So that's all the only way I can explain it to you. Mahaprabhu, we know that he would not get contaminated by associating with a worldly person. He knew how to handle himself. He was self-reliant. He was self-contained. Nothing would disturb him. He was realized, he's God himself. But this, we have to understand, it is a play. It's a play out of a relationship that Mahaprabhu is rolling out, which just brings out a deeper feeling. Ultimately, it becomes richer in the end. So it's a form of expression of bhava, deep feeling, and this is just. I have not heard a good answer, but it would just be my presentation, knowing the way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, that the Lord is just holding everyone at suspense level. So when there's suspense and finally there's a resolve in the end, it was so much more of a deeper experience than when it comes so easy. Oh yeah, send him in, come bring him in. He wants to come and see me. Oh yeah, open the door, roll out the red carpet. Yeah. But when it's made, you really have to work for like when somebody works for their money, you're penniless. I met somebody the other day, yesterday, in fact, he said, I came to this country with $4, but they made something of it. The famous Von Trapp family from The Sound of Music, they were exiled. They left Austria because of the war in 1939, and they came and they settled in Vermont. They had less than $10 in their pocket, but they made something of their lives, and they went around and did concerts all over the world and made some money. So it's like that. When you have to work hard for something, then it becomes so much more endearing, and that's what I read into this Leela, this particular pastime. And especially for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's so eager to get out there for everybody, right? But he did draw some lines, like he was a sannyasi, so he made it clear, I'm just not going to get close to women, and he did. And when it came to certain other individuals, same thing. But anybody who showed strong devotional inclinations, he brought them in to his circle, and that we see in the case of Haridas Thakur, who came from an Islamic background, and we see in the case of so many other people who are with different traditions that came into the picture. I mean, some of his closest associates, Sanatana, Rupa Goswami, they were former political people. They worked for Hussein Shah, who was the ruling king of the time. So they were like his ministers. So same kind of story, but he welcomed them. And if you read in the annals of the history, they had to struggle somewhat to get to him. It wasn't easy. Sanatana Goswami had to struggle through jungles and swamps, and he got like bad diseases and there's Bengal tigers, and all to get to Mahaprabhu. He worked hard to get there. So that would just be one angle, I would say, in which to look at it.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Yes, for the wonderful explanation. Yes, Maharaj, because to me, even after so many, the time lapse, but ultimately the request was accepted, and that made the power of Pratap Rudra even more intense to meet him, and
yes.
That explains very well, Maharaj. That explains very well. Thank you so much.
It's an intense endeavor, to get there. And once you've got it, now I worked so hard to get, I can't let it go. I can't let it go.
That's true.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
All right.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
This is Kannan
Kishori.
and Kishori Mohan. I was in Rochester, Maharaj, when you came.
Yes.
So we met in Rochester.
How are you?
Good, Maharaj. How are you, Maharaj? Doing all right? So,
We were there a year ago, weren't we? We were
yes,
walking on the Erie Trail, which I understand is
correct.
now a trail from New York City going all the way up into Canada.
That's true, Maharaj. And we did a Kirtan Harinam in there. So,
Yes,
very nice,
yes,
very nice. I have a question, Maharaj, regarding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's two lives, right? First life, he was a Grahastha. So he was doing
yes.
Sankirtan movement and all those things, street Harinams and everything. So when he took sannyas and went to Puri, did he do Sankirtan or who were all his companions? Because Nitai Prabhu left here, I guess.
Because what was the last thing you said, Nitai?
Who were all his companions in Puri when he took sannyas?
Oh, yes. Okay. So your question is, what happened in the second phase? Was Kirtan still going on?
Yes, yes.
That's your question, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yeah, to my understanding, there was some level of Kirtan, but in the latter stage of his life in Puri, he was so entranced. He was entrenched in trance, meaning he was so much caught up in his feelings and bhava that in some way he was handicapped from doing that. Um, People were observing him. They knew who he was. They were inspired by him to see his, to observe his deep love for Krishna. So the inspiration didn't stop, but the methodology may have somewhat adjusted, because when he was a grahastha, as you said aptly, the first kirtans, which were very loud and exhilarating, were in Navadvip, right?
Yes,
And near his birthplace, and so he continued on like that. But in his later stages, when of sannyasis, you can find sannyasis doing a number of things. They can be extroverted in the sense that they're really going out there, outgoing people, or they might be even hermit-like in the case of Mahaprabhu. He had a lot of downtime, as we say sometimes, a lot of time to himself, where he's very immersed in love of God. Hard for us to understand what that is, but for his intimate associates, they appeared to be very much there with him and for him. In fact, they had to keep an eye on him in case he would actually hurt himself during his moments of ecstasy. So they were very much there, and there were travels that he made regularly from Puri back to Navadvip, and sometimes he would make the visit to Vrindavan, and that always hurt everybody. Wherever they were, they wanted to keep him. No, you really don't have to go. Devotees would say, like Advaita, he'd say, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. You don't need to go to Vrindavan, just stay here, because wherever you are, your mind, you're carrying the holy Dham with you. So no need to go. And I think maybe it was a selfish, request. Stay here with us, and most likely that he wouldn't go out, and he would, if he was on his own, he'd be in danger. The devotees made sure that he always had an assistant to look after him, because the sannyasi alone could be a little problematic. There's dacoits out there, and people who are up to no good, have bad intentions, and as we mentioned, there are tigers too, wild animals, much more then than now, right? With all the so-called development that we have. So he never stopped to inspire people, despite the two phases. He inspired everybody right from the beginning. When he was born, he was receiving so much attention, from everybody, from Advaita Acharya's wife, and just all the ladies to the men, everybody. The pundits of that time, they were so impressed with this little boy who seemed to have so much in him. Yeah, so he always inspired.
Thank you, Maharaj. Just wanted to know, because we see the same different portraits. One is when he was a grahastha with the 5 his panch tattvas, and the other one was a sannyasi also. Different. So we got to understand both profiles.
Well, he only lived for 48 years, so that's really a, relatively speaking, a short time. Well, most of us who are on this call are beyond 48. And but even though it was a short, brief period, he was very impactful. And I sometimes compare his persona to that of Francis of Assisi. He also lived up into his 40s. He didn't live very long. And he was very close to the animals, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. He blessed animals as much as he did people. And this is a saint from North Italy, right? And he lived quite a few hundred years back. He was there before Chaitanya, and they have big celebrations to honor Francis of Assisi. I think it's on October 4th. They have a big event because he was supposed to have left this world at that time. So it's there are some parallels there. Short but sweet. Short lifespan, but impactful.
That's true. Thank you, Maharaj. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else there? Vaishnav?
Hare Krishna. Well, I've been making some notes, Maharaj, and you said about a few things about the influence of Hare Krishna. What are they noted for? Sacred food, sacred sound, and sacred wisdom. But many times we get many speakers coming along to different centers, and each one presents another challenge or another opportunity for the devotees. One may speak on the Grihastha vision, one may speak on book distribution, and many things. What would you say Iskcon should stand out for? We cannot do all things. And most people within the movement don't have the capabilities, skills to do all things. And yet when these presentations are made, it seems as if you are not playing to the standard. You're falling short because you're weak in certain areas. You may be strong in other areas, but you may be weak in other areas. So what can Iskcon stand out as the one thing globally that this is what these people are good for? This is their niche. This is what most of us should maybe attempt to do.
Well, I think we touched on it a little bit earlier on. I believe that if we show kindness and gentleness towards all people, humans, the earth, the planet, the animals, the care of our homes where we live, the care of our cars, our front yard, our backyard. We look after everything and we do it in a good spirit. People will pick up on this. I think that it's the kindness element that's the most important thing, because in that environment, people will feel, oh wow, I would love to distribute books. I would love to get behind a prasadam distribution program, or I would love to maybe be a counselor for people who are having some difficulty in their marriages and their family life. So I think that if you create an atmosphere of love and kindness and being very accommodating, everything will come. And that to me is the essence behind Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's love. He gave love. And he did it in a fun way, like the cleaning of the temple. He said, okay, we're going to have some fun here, boys. And we're going to clean this temple. We're going to take it from top to bottom, and we're going to do it with love. And, even if you didn't have love, you'd end up loving in the end. It's described that people had pots of water, and they were slipping and crashing into each other, and the pots were breaking, and they were sometimes laughing. And in the process, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also, you would note if somebody was not coming up to the mark, put them in their place. Hey, come on. Hey, you could do better than that. Scrub, put in some elbow grease, whatever, in his whatever terms would be given in those times. He just made it fun. He encouraged teamwork, and let's all move together. Let's all march up into the spiritual world together. Just give a lot of love. I mean, I know it sounds mushy, but it's still the let's say it's at the core of existence. It's at the core of happy life. It's the denominator. It's what always has to lie there, the foundation, and from there everything can spring. All the little projects that you want to do, everything that needs to be done. I'm happy to hear that some of your speakers are putting everyone to the challenge, but let's all do it, and let's do it together like a team. So we want to build up our yatra in Niagara Falls, and let's do it in that format. What is it that people need? They definitely need spirituality. I have a cousin who's constantly sending me stuff about, oh, look at this pandemic, look at the vaccines are not even appropriate. And, it's like conspiracy stuff, on and on and on and on. And I just said to her, I said, well, listen, it's great to bring these things to my attention. And I swallow them. I accept what you're saying, but there's something that has to guide me more than this negative stuff, and it has to be my sense of dharma, my sense of duty, my spirituality comes before anything else. That's what's going to keep me insane. Otherwise, I'm going to see everybody as my enemy. I'll see everybody as a crook. I won't trust anybody, and I'm not going to fall into the trap of living in a state of fear, which is kind of the world in which we live right now. Don't touch, don't hug. Close your, put a mask on. I'm not against those things, but I'm just, some people are so extreme about it, like Hare Krishna. Can we ever get together again? So that would be the way I would answer it, I think. When you look at all the different avatars who have come and you compare them, so many saints, whether they're from India or from the East or the West, doesn't matter. Most of them exhibited some kind of love, but I believe that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he expressed it in the most, profound way, more than anybody else. It was just oozing out of him. Here's the sannyasi, he's personally serving everyone prasadam. He's going and cleansing. He's taking a humble position. And he's enjoying it. He's not there just to receive alms from everyone. Thank you. He's not getting applause. It wasn't that. It was more about doing the simple things that made him happy. It's the loving mood that the Hare Krishna movement proposes to, or hopes to share with the world, like a different spin on spirituality. We all know about different faith groups who are very intense and who are some very aggressive and violent even. We have fanatics everywhere. In every culture you're going to find them. Even if you call yourself a religion or a culture, you'll have some aggressive people. But is that really what we want to put forward? Is that really what we stand for? No. No. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's program was a little different from Krishna's. He said, here is the love of God. Taste it. It's so much, it's so good. Okay, you've tasted it. Now just follow a few rules. But Krishna's approach was, I've got a few rules for you. Now that you're following the rules, here's love of God. Here's the love that will come after. Mahaprabhu did it in reverse. He said, here's love. You like it? There's more of it. Just agree to follow some policies. No problem. You'll be able to hold on to it. And Krishna's approach was quite the opposite. Sarvadharman parityaja mamekang sharanam vraja. Give it all. Surrender everything. and then I'll give you love. Chaitanya said, here's love. Now surrender step by step, baby steps, no problem. You're a man of the Kali Yuga, you know, I have to be kind to you. I don't like that.
Thank you, Bhaktimarga Swami. Thank you. Very nice for especially reinforcing the message of love. I mean, that is fantastic, fantastic. As you say, what the world needs now is love. Too many lonely people on this planet.
Yes.
Too many, too
Yes,
many.
that's right.
So, and in COVID is making, I mean, at least prior to COVID, we had devotee association. And now we are devastated by the lack of devotee association. And this
Oh,
virtual programs are some kind of relief, but it's not the real thing. I mean, to a point. So thank you.
well,
Thank
you
you.
know, thank you. And I just wanted to add, like, the devotees in Montreal, they were stopped from doing kirtan in the subway. And then, so they decided, what are we going to do to reach out to people? And so they checked with the city and they said, we'd like to deliver free food. So they were started making, in the dead of winter, they were bringing food to the streets for the people. And the city said, yes, that's fine. That's an essential. And so they figured out how to keep themselves engaged and how to stay connected with the public. And so that's something we could think about, even if this pandemic goes on and on. If it becomes an essential, then maybe that's something that could be arranged. Maybe the city will say, okay, in a particular neighborhood, there's a need for that. So spring is on, set up, you to get the okay from the city, get their blessings, and go for it and show our love. Say this food is good. You get people in the comments there. This is really good stuff, and it's healthy, isn't it? And you say, yes, it is. It's made with love, and it's coming from Krishna. What? Krishna? Christ? Christian? No, Krishna. You can have those kind of fun dialogues with people. Why not? We can do that in Niagara. We can do it in Rochester. We can, you know, all over. There's no limit.
Yes, yes, Maharaj.
Just an idea.
Thank you. And we'll take one more question if there's one more outstanding, and then we'll go to the.
Vaishnava Prabhu, I need to drop off. Thanks, Maharaj. And
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll communicate after the program sometime.
Sure, Prabhu. Because Rochester program starts at 5:30. So
yes.
Forgive me. So
I wish you all success. We hope we can visit you again soon.
Sure, Maharaj. You're welcome all the time. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So if there's any question, we'll take another question. Then this was a few announcements, not too many, and then we'll close up with the Kirtan by His Grace, Satchidananda Das. So it looks as if there are no more outstanding questions. So we'll invite, just two announcements. On Wednesday is going to be Amalaki Ekadasi, fasting from grains. And on Thursday, it's the Disciplines Day of Madhavendra Puri, the great saint and Goswami, initiated by Lakshmi Pati Titta, and the guru of Ishvara Puri, Advaitacharya. He's coming in the line of Madhvacharya, following that Dvaita philosophy. So anyway, that's on Thursday, and Wednesday is Ekadasi, fasting from grains. And now we'll invite Satchidananda. And Maharaj, once again, Iskcon Niagara, thanks you so much for sharing your time with us and your wisdom. And please do come back again and again as possible. Thank you very much.
We're our pleasure. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for inviting me. Hare Bol.
Thank you. We'll have Satchidananda to do closing kirtan. Thank you.
श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। गाय गौरा मधुर स्वरे हरि नाम गाय गौरा मधुर स्वरे हरि नाम गा हरि नाम गाय गौरा मधुर स्वरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे हरि नाम गाय गौरा मधुर स्वरे गृह थाको वने थाको सदा हरि बोले दाखो गृह थाको वने थाको सदा हरि बोले दाखो सुख दुख भूलो नाको वदने हरि नाम करो रे सुख दुख भूलो नाको वदने हरि नाम करो रे गाय गो राम मधुर स्वरे Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in a very melodious tones, sings the holy names and he instructs Grihe thako vane thako, whether you are in the house as a householder, grihastha, or a vanaprastha or a sannyasi living in the forest, always say the holy names. Sukhe dukhe bhulo nako, vadane hari naam korore. Whether you are in happiness or distress, always chant the holy names with your tongue. Hari naam gai go ram madhur sware Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Maya jal bhat hoye aancho niche kajaloye maya jale batt hoye aancho niche kajaloye akhona chetana peye राधा माधव नाम रे कौन चेतना पे राधा माधव नाम बोलो रे गाय हो राम मधुर स्वर रे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We are all bound up in the network of Maya and are forced to toil fruitlessly, work hard. Now that we have obtained full consciousness in the human form of life, please chant the names of Radha Madhav. Gai Gora Madhu Raswa Harinam Gai Go Ramadhu Rasware Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jivana hoilo se na bhajile rishi kesh jivana hoilo se na bhajile rishi kesh bhakti vinoda उपदेश एकबार नाम रस मातोरे भक्ति विनोद उपदेश एकबार नाम रस मातोरे गाय तो राम मधुर स्वरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructs that your life may end at any moment, and if you have not served the Lord of the senses known as Rishikesh, Please take this advice of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and just once act by. Naam Rashe Matore, relish the nectar of the holy name. Hari Naam Gai Gaura Madhura Sware. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Keshava Rakshamam, Krishna Keshava Pahi Mam, Ram Raghava Rakshama, Krishna Keshava Pahi Mam. He Krishna, He Krishna, He Krishna, He Krishna, He Krishna, He Krishna, Oh Krishna Keshava Rakshama, Ram Raghava Pahima, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Srila Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Ashtottara Shata. His Divine Grace Nitya Lila Pravishtom Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Jagat Guru Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya Acharya Guruvar Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Hari Das Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। बोलो श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की जय। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। जमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। समावेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायिनी तुलसी महारानी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Sachit Anandadas, for your nice, sweet kirtan and closing this program in such a pleasant way. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the personalities that have attended the program today and given us your association. We look forward for you to join us on a continued basis, and may you enjoy a wonderful spring. Thank you, and it's Gaur Purnima week, celebration week. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Jai.